Imagine giving an autonomous AI the absolute keys to your company's deepest digital vaults.
Right.
And you aren't doing it because you trust it, right? You're doing it because if you don't, a rival AI is going to like burn the entire building down in 15 seconds flat.
Yeah, that is the reality we're facing.
Welcome to the Deep Dives, everyone. Today, we are looking at a massive leaked document from Anthropic.
A leak that honestly has Wall Street completely panicking right now.
Oh, full panic. And, cybersecurity experts are waking up to this realization that the human era of digital defense, like humans actively defending networks, might just be entirely over.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, we are stepping into the reality of spring 2026, and the security landscape we all thought we knew is just fundamentally broken. The days of clear system logs and human analysts patching code are, they're gone.
Yeah, it's a complete paradigm shift. We are no longer dealing with discrete, recognizable threats that a human team can just, quarantine. We are looking at this impending wave of automated AI-driven exploits. And they operate at a velocity and a scale that, frankly, makes traditional defensive postures look, well, prehistoric.
Prehistoric is exactly the word.
The waters aren't just muddy anymore. The entire ecosystem has completely changed.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're dissecting this massive, landscape-altering internal blog post that leaked from Anthropic. We've got this incredible breakdown from tech commentator Wes Roth that really lays out all the pieces.
It's a great source to work from, for sure.
But our mission here today isn't just to gawk at some shiny new piece of software.
No, the implications are way too big for that.
Exactly. We're going to really rip apart this fundamental shift in digital security. We're going to look at the brutal economics of this upcoming AI arms race.
Which is fascinating in itself.
Oh, it's mind-bending. And most importantly, we want to talk about exactly how this rewires your daily digital life, because the ground under your feet is shifting right now.
It's shifting rapidly, and, the market reaction absolutely proves it. If you look at the financial sector right now, investors are just hyperventilating.
Yeah, they are freaking out.
Cybersecurity stocks are plummeting across the board. But I think our job today is to step back from that pure panic.
Right. Take a breath.
Exactly. We need to analyze the factual timeline that Wes Roth presented from this leak. We have to examine the raw data of what was actually exposed.
And sort of logically deduce what it all means for the very near future of our digital infrastructure.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the actual leak itself, because the sheer mechanics of how this information got out are almost as fascinating as the data itself.
They really are. It's almost comical.
Right. I mean, we aren't looking at some highly sophisticated zero-day exploit by a nation state here.
No.
We are talking about a coordinated social engineering campaign targeting some C-level executive at Anthropic.
No, it was much simpler than that.
It was a catastrophic configuration error. Basically, Dee Nolan, a reporter for Fortune, was just poking around online and discovered that Anthropic's CMS, their content management system, had essentially defaulted to public.
Which is just an incredibly sobering reality check.
It really is.
I mean, think about it. You have one of the most advanced, highly secretive artificial intelligence laboratories on the planet, a company literally building the architecture of the future.
Yeah.
And they are brought to their knees by the exact same infrastructure misconfiguration that plagues, amateur web developers.
Like someone forgetting to check a box on WordPress.
Exactly. It underscores this vital vulnerability in our whole tech stack. No matter how sophisticated the computational models become, they are still housed within this incredibly fragile perimeter of human-managed IT infrastructure.
Right. And so Nolan realizes that the door isn't just unlocked. It is wide open.
Wide open.
Everything Anthropic had been staging, all their uploaded posts, their internal drafts, their image assets, it's all just sitting there in plain text, completely exposed to the public internet.
Yeah.
And to confirm, this wasn't just some bizarre, localized caching error on Nolan's own machine. An independent cybersecurity researcher named Roy Paw stumbled into the exact same open directory, completely independently.
And that independent verification by Paw is really critical.
Why is that?
Because it confirms the persistent nature of the vulnerability. This wasn't just a momentary blip during a server migration or something. The endpoint was fundamentally exposed, allowing literally anyone with the right URL structure to recursively query their entire internal database.
Wow. And the scale of that exposure is just staggering. Over 3,000 internal items were laid bare.
Yeah, that's a massive breach.
We aren't talking about a single rogue document slipping through the cracks here. It was a massive data dump. PDFs, internal corporate event
Which
details.
is always embarrassing.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
High-resolution image assets, various draft blog posts,
Hmm.
and centrally, the document that has the entire industry holding its breath right now,
Yeah.
the Claude Mythos blog post.
Right. Now, Anthropic naturally attributed the entire incident to, quote, human error.
Of course they did.
And they severed external access to those servers with impressive speed once they realized. But the digital forensics reality is that speed rarely matters once a highly valuable asset hits the public internet.
No, it's gone.
The data is immortalized the second it is indexed by any external party.
Exactly. And in this case, an archivist group operating under the name M1 Astra, or I think some people say Mastra, they managed to rip the entirety of the Claude Mythos blog post before Anthropic could pull the plug.
They mirrored the raw text perfectly.
Yeah. So now, Anthropic's exact internal messaging is out in the wild, completely decoupled from their own controlled hosting environment.
And that massive loss of narrative control immediately breeds a ton of speculation.
Oh, totally.
In the current hyper-competitive climate of spring 2026, whenever a secretive tech giant suffers a leak of this magnitude right before a major release window,
People start talking.
right, the immediate assumption by a lot of analysts is that it's a calculated maneuver.
Yeah, the conspiracy theories are running absolutely rampant right now. I'm sure you've seen them.
Oh, everywhere.
The most popular theory floating around is that this was a deliberate, highly orchestrated marketing stunt.
Mm-hmm.
The logic goes that AI labs rely heavily on this narrative of, oh, our technology is almost too dangerous to release.
It builds mistake.
Right, it builds hype. And how incredibly convenient that this apocalyptic warning leaks right before an exclusive, invite-only CEO event, where this exact new model was slated for a private demo.
Yeah, the timing is suspicious to some.
So the skeptics are framing this as a PR masterclass to drive up valuations ahead of that event.
And, it is a seductive narrative, certainly.
Sure.
The tech industry has a very long history of utilizing controlled leaks to gauge market reaction or to just generate synthetic buzz ahead of a big product cycle.
But I have to push back hard on that theory, though. I really do.
Oh, why is that?
Because exposing 3,000 internal documents is way too messy to be a controlled PR operation.
Fair point.
Think about it this way. You don't accidentally burn down your entire house just to show the neighborhood how loud your new fire alarm is.
That's a great analogy.
Right. If Anthropic wanted to leak a blog post to build hype, they would strategically leak one sanitized blog post to a friendly journalist.
They wouldn't dump the whole server.
Exactly. They wouldn't dump thousands of internal files, including incredibly mundane and potentially embarrassing logistical details about internal offsites, alongside unvetted PDFs. That is not a surgical marketing strike. That is a devastating operational failure.
Your logic definitely holds up against the technical realities of managing web infrastructure. A CMS defaulting to public access is a remarkably common, well-documented failure mode.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
We've seen similar misconfigurations with AWS S3 buckets or improperly secured API endpoints at major financial institutions and government agencies.
It happens to the best of them.
It is deeply humiliating for a company of Anthropic's caliber, absolutely. But it is entirely plausible as a genuine cascading human error in their access control management.
And if you look at the raw text of the leaked post itself, the tone completely dismantles the whole marketing brochure theory.
Absolutely it does.
When you parse the ripped text of the Claude Mythos post, it does not read like promotional copy engineered to excite venture capitalists.
Not at all. The tone is incredibly grim.
Very grim.
It reads more like the final leak showdown scene in Matrix 3 or something. It is a stark, urgent, almost apocalyptic warning broadcast to the technical community.
Yeah.
They are not hyping a shiny new feature. They are sounding a definitive alarm about the immediate future of our digital infrastructure.
Which presents such a wild, ironic juxtaposition. I mean, here is a multi-billion-dollar organization capable of engineering artificial intelligence that borders on the incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And they suffer a massive data hemorrhage because an employee likely misclicked a permission toggle in a web form.
It's actually the perfect thematic prelude to the leaked document itself, if you think about it.
Wait, how so?
Well, the fundamental warning embedded in the Claude Mythos post is that human defenders, human cognition, human reaction times, human infallibility are about to be wildly outpaced by automated, tireless systems.
Oh, wow.
This CMS failure is a real-world, localized example of that exact vulnerability. It proves how incredibly fragile our digital infrastructure is when its security relies on human perfection.
Because humans make mistakes.
Exactly. A machine doesn't get tired and forget to check a permission box on a Friday afternoon.
That is a terrifyingly brilliant point. The leak itself proves the thesis of the leaked document.
It really does.
Okay, let's dive into the actual architecture of this warning. Let's talk about Claude Mythos and what exactly this model represents according to the source.
To accurately contextualize Mythos, we have to look at Anthropic's established deployment architecture.
Right.
Prior to this leak, their models were stratified into 3 distinct tiers, optimized for different compute-to-capability ratios.
So we had Haiku, right?
Yes, Haiku at the base for latency-sensitive tasks, then Sonnet in the middle, and Opus at the premium tier for complex reasoning tasks.
And we know Opus 4.6 was their reigning champion. That was the benchmark everyone in the industry was testing against.
Correct. Opus 4.6 was the frontier. But this leaked document reveals an entirely new architectural tier positioned above Opus.
Whole new level.
Yes, they have designated it Mythos. There's also significant internal documentation in the leak referencing the codename Capybara.
Capybara.
Yeah. While it's slightly ambiguous whether Capybara is the overarching project name or just a specific, highly optimized checkpoint of the model, Mythos is clearly the finalized tier designation.
The nomenclature here is fascinating to me. They didn't just call it Opus Ultra or Opus Max. The leaked text explicitly defines the philosophy behind the name Mythos.
Right.
Anthropic states it is meant to evoke, quote, the deep connective tissue that links together knowledge and ideas.
And that phrase connective tissue is really the technical key to understanding what makes this model a paradigm shift rather than just an iterative update.
Let's break down what that actually means in practice. Because according to the internal benchmarks in the leak, when pitted against Opus 4.6, Mythos demonstrates exponentially higher scores across 3 highly complex domains.
Which are?
Software coding, academic reasoning, and critically cybersecurity.
Right. But we also have to analyze the massive operational limitations they outline in the text.
Yeah, it's not all smooth sailing.
Anthropic is very transparent internally that Mythos is intensely compute-heavy. It requires a staggering amount of FLOPs just for basic inference.
So it's expensive.
It's exceptionally expensive for their infrastructure to serve. And in its current unoptimized state, the API pricing would be completely unfeasible for broad commercial deployment.
Which makes total sense mechanically. I mean, it sounds like going from renting a standard sedan to trying to fuel a Formula One race car for your daily commute.
That's a good way to put it.
It's incredibly powerful, but financially and logistically completely unfeasible for the average person right now. You can't just scale up a model's parameters indefinitely without hitting a memory wall. But I want to drill down into this connective tissue concept you mentioned, because this isn't just about the model memorizing more data.
No.
Older models, even great ones like Opus 4.6, operate a bit like brilliant librarians. You give them a highly specific prompt, and they run into the stacks, find the exact manual you need, and read it back to you. They retrieve and summarize beautifully.
Yes, they are retrieval engines, essentially.
But Mythos sounds entirely different. Mythos sounds like a master detective.
Yes!
It can read a dense text on theoretical biology, cross-reference it with a manual on network packet routing, and suddenly invent a completely novel way to isolate a polymorphic computer virus by treating the network anomaly like an organic pathogen.
That's a great visualization.
It's synthesizing entirely disparate fields to generate net new concepts.
That is exactly the distinction. The leap to the Mythos tier represents a shift from advanced information retrieval to genuine cross-domain synthesis. In software coding, for instance, it isn't just auto-completing syntax or finding a missing semicolon. It's understanding the holistic architecture of an entire massive code base.
Seeing the whole picture.
Right, and recognizing how a vulnerability in some legacy authentication module interacts with a newly deployed microservice. It spots architectural patterns that are functionally invisible to human analysts who are siloed in their specific departments.
So it's moving from a massive static encyclopedia to a dynamic reasoning engine.
Precisely. And what's fascinating here is that capability directly informs Anthropic's highly guarded release strategy.
Right, they aren't just putting this out for anyone.
No. The leaked documents show they have zero intention of pushing this to a general release immediately. You aren't going to see Mythos pop up in a consumer drop-down menu next week.
No $20 a month subscription for this one yet.
Definitely not. They state explicitly that they need extensive time to massage the model, likely utilizing advanced quantization techniques and sparse attention mechanisms to drastically reduce those compute costs before the public ever gets access.
They are buying time.
They're operating under a mandate of extra caution to fully map out the near-term risks surface.
Which leads us right to the absolute core of this leak. Because for all of its incredible academic reasoning capabilities, Anthropic didn't title this highly classified internal memo a head start for academic research.
No, they certainly didn't.
They titled it a head start for cybersecurity.
And this is where the narrative really shifts from fascinating tech development to genuine systemic threat. This is the section of the data dump that triggered that massive market sell-off we talked about.
Yeah, this is the scary part.
To understand the severity of this, we need to look at the historical precedent established in the text.
Okay.
The leak specifically references a recent, highly coordinated campaign where a Chinese state-sponsored group utilized older, commercially available Claude models to successfully penetrate the perimeters of roughly 30 different organizations.
Okay, let that sink in for a second. A state actor used older, smaller models that are essentially obsolete compared to Opus, let alone Mythos, to coordinate a multi-vector breach across dozens of targets.
Yes.
If an obsolete model can be weaponized to do that, what happens when a model with the cross-domain reasoning capabilities of Mythos is unleashed?
According to Anthropic's own stark assessment, Mythos is currently leagues ahead of any existing model in offensive cyber capabilities.
Leagues ahead.
But more terrifyingly, they view Mythos merely as a harbinger.
A harbinger.
Yeah. The text states that Mythos, quote, presages an upcoming wave of models. They are explicitly warning that this next generation of AI will be able to autonomously discover, map, and exploit novel vulnerabilities at a speed that renders human defensive patching entirely obsolete.
The machines are dynamically finding the microscopic cracks in the digital fortress faster than human engineers can even boot up their diagnostic tools to patch the stone.
Exactly. The latency of human cognition becomes the primary vulnerability here.
The fact that we have to think is the problem.
Yes. So Anthropic is deploying an emergency brake strategy. They are restricting early access of Mythos exclusively to verified cybersecurity defenders.
So only the good guys get it first.
That's the hope. They are trying to give enterprise security teams a head start, a window of time to utilize the model to harden their code bases against what Anthropic literally describes as the impending wave of AI-driven exploits.
They are trying to reinforce the walls before they hand the enemy the blueprints to the siege engines.
That's a very poetic way of phrasing their strategy, but yes.
But here is where the logic seems to fracture for me, and I really want to dissect this with you.
Okay.
The market reacted violently to this news. CrowdStrike plummeted 7%. Palo Alto Networks dropped 6%. The broader NASDAQ took a 2% hit almost instantly.
It was a very red day.
But wait, if Anthropic is exclusively giving these massive cybersecurity firms early access to the ultimate defensive tool, giving them a head start, as the Post says, why did their stock prices instantly tank?
It's a great question.
Shouldn't Wall Street be thrilled? I mean, shouldn't investors be overjoyed that the defenders are getting a new, incredibly powerful defensive tool?
It seems counterintuitive on the surface, I completely agree. But the market's reaction is actually deeply rational when you understand the underlying economic theory of cyber warfare that this leak exposes.
Okay, break that down for me.
The market didn't panic because defenders are receiving a new tool. The market panicked because of what the absolute necessity of that tool implies about the future margin structures and the basic viability of the entire cybersecurity industry.
Hey, let me work through this. Historically, offensive cyber operations, really sophisticated novel attacks, not just script kiddies running known exploits, those were incredibly expensive to run.
Highly capital intensive, yes.
You needed a team of brilliant, highly paid hackers.
Yeah.
You needed weeks of reconnaissance. You needed to burn expensive zero-day exploits that took months to find. And you needed massive infrastructure just to avoid detection. Offense was hard.
Precisely. And defense was equally capital intensive, but the scales were somewhat balanced.
Right.
But with Mythos, the math completely breaks.
Because of the automation.
Exactly. If an AI can autonomously analyze a target, discover a novel vulnerability, write the custom exploit, and execute the attack in seconds, the cost of executing a highly sophisticated cyber attack drops to the cost of an API call.
Wow.
It drops to practically zero.
Okay, you've hit the exact mechanism of the market panic right there.
Yeah.
The cost of offense goes to zero. But the cost of defense,
It remains astronomically high.
defenders still require massive enterprise architecture, 24/7 monitoring human analysts to oversee the systems.
Yeah.
And now they will have to pay for continuous, incredibly expensive API calls to advanced models just to actively scan for the automated attacks.
The defenders will literally go bankrupt just trying to monitor the sheer volume of zero-cost attacks coming at them.
Exactly. Anthropic's shield before the sword philosophy, giving defenders the model first.
Yeah.
It's a noble, desperate attempt to patch vulnerabilities now.
It's all they can really do.
But institutional investors look at that strategy and see the writing on the wall. They realize this is just a temporary stopgap.
Right. Eventually, models with Mythos-level capabilities, whether from Anthropic, OpenAI, or open-source alternatives, will reach general availability.
And once the sword is democratized,
The volume and sophistication of attacks will be functionally infinite. Security companies will be trapped in an unwinnable, highly unprofitable game of asymmetric warfare.
the mole in this game of whack-a-mole is now faster, smarter, infinitely scalable, and it never sleeps.
That level of systemic uncertainty absolutely destroys forward-looking valuations.
When you lay out the broken math of defense like that, the 7% drop in CrowdStrike makes perfect sense.
It was a logical market correction based on a fundamentally changed future.
But I want to pull this out of the abstract enterprise space for a second, because when you hear Palo Alto Networks and institutional investors,
Yeah.
it's so easy to just sort of disengage and think, well, that's a Fortune 500 problem. That doesn't affect me.
But it absolutely does.
If you are listening to this right now, this fundamentally alters your reality. Think about the digital infrastructure you rely on every single day. Your local credit union, the patient portal at your doctor's office.
The inventory system at your local pharmacy.
Yes, these places do not have the budget to run $10,000 a month AI defense systems. If AI democratizes devastation and drops the cost of hacking to zero, bad actors aren't just going to target the heavily fortified banks.
No, they'll cast a much wider net.
They are going to target everything because it costs them nothing to do so. Your personal data is sitting in the crosshairs of an automated, zero-cost attack vector.
The democratization of offensive capabilities means the blast radius expands to include the most vulnerable, least defended sectors of the economy.
It's chilling.
And the sheer cognitive complexity of dealing with this impending threat environment is overwhelming for seasoned security professionals, let alone everyday users trying to just navigate their digital lives.
Which is actually a brilliant segue into another massive component of the leak source material.
Oh, the workflow section.
Yes. Because that feeling of profound cognitive overload, that sense of being completely overwhelmed by the complexity of AI, mirrors exactly how the average user is experiencing the daily utility of AI tools right now in spring 2026.
It really is the dichotomy of the era. On one hand, you have the existential threat of AI infrastructure, and on the other, you have the mundane friction of daily AI integration.
The source takes a really fascinating detour away from the apocalyptic cybersecurity warnings to analyze the current state of digital workflows, and they specifically highlight a phenomenon they perfectly term the tab nightmare.
It is a visceral, highly accurate description of modern knowledge work.
Everyone listening knows exactly what this feels like. You
Yes.
sit down to complete a single comprehensive project. You have one browser tab open running a language model to help you draft the text.
Right.
You have another tab open running a specialized research agent to pull citations. A third tab is running an image generation model for your presentation assets.
A fourth tab is crunching your CSV file in a data analysis environment.
Maybe a fifth tab is open, trying to debug a script. You are constantly copying, pasting, reprompting, and shifting context.
It's exhausting.
By the end of the day, the source notes, the primary thing you have successfully automated is your own ability to get profoundly distracted.
We have been handed incredibly powerful modular tools, but we have completely fractured our cognitive workflow to accommodate them.
We're doing the busy work for the AI.
The user has essentially become the manual API, bouncing between 15 disjointed interfaces and trying to convince themselves that this highly fragmented process is somehow efficient.
Enter the architectural solution highlighted in the source, GenSpark Workspace 3.0.
This is a massive pivot.
Now, the crucial distinction the source makes is that GenSpark isn't just launching another standalone chatbot with a sleek UI. They're building a comprehensive multi-model orchestration layer.
Which is the key term there, orchestration layer.
Instead of the user acting as the exhausted bridge between different AI silos, GenSpark acts as a unified ecosystem that dynamically routes tasks to the optimal foundational model in the background. They explicitly note that GenSpark integrates GPT, Claude, and Gemini natively.
That underlying architectural choice is arguably more important than any specific feature they offer.
Why do you say that?
By engineering a system that seamlessly evaluates a prompt's intent and routes it to OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google's infrastructure entirely behind the scenes,
Yeah.
GenSpark is publicly validating a core industry reality. The future of AI is explicitly multimodal.
Meaning the idea of complete brand loyalty to one specific AI lab is dead.
Exactly. The paradigm where a user exclusively uses ChatGPT or exclusively uses Claude is fading.
Users just want results.
Right. Users demand the absolute best output for a highly specific subtask. If Claude is superior at coding Python, but Gemini is faster at parsing live search results, and GPT is better at creative drafting, the user wants all three, seamlessly. The true enterprise value, the real platform stickiness, now resides in that orchestration layer, the operating system that sits above the foundational models and intelligently manages the routing, the context windows, and the memory.
Without the user ever needing to understand the underlying mechanics.
Precisely.
And GenSpark is aggressively building out the feature set within this operating layer. The source highlights several native applications they've built in.
Like AI slides.
Yes, there is AI slides, which the document emphasizes generates fully production-ready presentations.
Yeah.
Not just generic, hallucinated rough drafts that take you 3 hours to manually reformat.
That's a huge pain point they're solving.
There is AI Sheets, which allows the user to ingest, clean, analyze, and visualize complex data sets entirely through natural language. You are completely bypassing the need to wrestle with nested Excel formulas.
Thank God.
Right. There is a unified AI media suite that handles image, video, audio, and music generation in a single interface. And one specific integration that really stood out, Speakly.
Ah, the continuous voice-to-text integration.
Yes. It seems like a minor utility, but the source emphasizes how frictionless it makes the workflow. You just speak naturally, and the orchestration layer doesn't just transcribe it.
It acts on it.
It formats it into polished emails, structured meeting notes, or task lists in real time. But all of these features pale in comparison to the absolute centerpiece of Workspace 3.0.
This is where it gets really crazy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We need to discuss the claw.
The GenSpark claw.
The source describes this not as a simple software application, but as a fully autonomous, dedicated cloud computer.
A virtual machine provisioned specifically for you.
It acts as your first true AI employee. It possesses persistent memory, meaning it understands your long-term goals and stylistic preferences over time.
It remembers you.
And, crucially, it operates independently of your local hardware. It has its own dedicated IP address, its own routing domain, and its own functional email address.
It marks the definitive transition from AI as a responsive tool to AI as an autonomous agentic system.
A huge leap.
A tool waits for your prompt. An agent executes a sustained, multi-step loop of action, observation, and course correction.
The source provides an incredibly detailed, practical example of how this agent operates. The commentator decides to build an AI-curated news aggregator.
Okay.
Now, traditionally, doing this requires significant technical overhead. You need to provision a server, write scraping scripts, manage databases, handle deployment.
It takes days or weeks.
But with the claw, the user simply fires up the interface, no local installation, no wrestling with AWS settings, and submits a single, highly specific natural language prompt.
The specificity of the parameters in that prompt is vital to understanding the system's capability.
Right. The user instructs the claw to deploy the application to a specific custom domain. They instruct it to utilize cron jobs to automate the scheduling of updates.
Pretty advanced stuff.
They command it to actively scrape disparate sources, Reddit APIs, Hacker News, X, and various RSS feeds from tech publications. The user hits execute, literally states they're going to walk away to make a sandwich, and returns 10 to 15 minutes later.
And let's analyze the exact output of that 15-minute window.
It's staggering. In the time it took to make lunch, the claw had autonomously written the entirety of the Python backend.
Wow.
It had written the front-end HTML and CSS. It had configured the virtual server. It had properly set up the cron jobs to ensure the scraping scripts ran continuously in the
You
background.
did all the DevOps.
All of it. It had debugged any rate limit errors from the APIs it was pulling from. Within 15 minutes, it deployed a live, publicly accessible website that had already aggregated 482 articles. And it was autonomously pushing live updates every 5 minutes.
That is incredible.
The user didn't write a single line of syntax. The traditional friction of software creation has essentially evaporated.
If we pull back and synthesize this example with the broader themes of the source material, the claw perfectly encapsulates the deeply dualistic nature of our current technological era.
How do you mean?
Well, on one side of the coin, it represents unprecedented empowerment. A single, non-technical individual can conceptualize a complex, automated web service, spin up an autonomous cloud computing environment, and deploy production-ready infrastructure in 15 minutes.
It completely democratizes software engineering.
But the other side of the coin,
Nah.
the exact same underlying mechanical capability, the ability for an AI system to autonomously analyze an environment, write executing code, provision infrastructure, and operate continuously on a loop without human oversight.
Yeah.
That is precisely why models like Anthropic's Mythos are generating such profound terror within the cybersecurity sector.
Because the mechanics are identical.
Exactly.
If an autonomous agent can write the Python code to build a benign news aggregator in 15 minutes, it can absolutely write the Python code to execute a custom zero-day network exploit in 15 minutes.
The capability is completely agnostic. Only the intent of the prompt changes.
That is chilling.
Precisely. And this incredible capability also explains the aggressive, almost desperate market strategy mentioned in the source regarding Gensburg.
Oh, the promotions.
Right. They are offering massive amounts of free compute credits, and for their premium tier, they're offering functionally unlimited usage of their AI chat and generation tools through the entirety of 2026.
Which makes no sense financially. We just established how incredibly expensive these models are to serve. Why on earth would Genspark give away unlimited compute when every inference call costs them money?
Because they are executing a classic tech land grab.
Land grab.
Yes. These orchestration layer companies are acutely aware that an absolute tidal wave of new, exponentially more capable foundational models is about to hit the market.
So they want to lock people in now.
They are operating at a massive loss right now to lock in user loyalty. They want your entire workflow, your data, and your persistent memory embedded deep within their specific ecosystem before the next generation of AI models completely resets the competitive landscape.
Which brings us perfectly to the broader industry landscape outlined in the leak. Because spring 2026 is shaping up to be an absolute powder keg of a release window.
It really is.
The source doesn't mince words. They call it potentially the biggest, most consequential release window in the entire history of artificial intelligence.
It is an unprecedented convergence of monumental technological leaps and staggering macroeconomic pressures.
We've spent a lot of time dissecting Anthropic's strategy with Mythos, but the source makes it clear that Anthropic isn't operating in a vacuum.
No, OpenAI is waiting in the wings.
Right. According to the leak, OpenAI has essentially completed the training run on their next major foundational model, which carries the internal moniker SPUD.
Spud.
SPUD. And SPUD is slated to arrive in a matter of weeks, accompanied by sweeping promises that it will fundamentally accelerate the economy.
The contrast in corporate messaging here is absolutely jarring.
It's giving me total whiplash. You have Anthropic leaking these stark apocalyptic warnings about imminent cyber threats, insisting on locking down their model and only granting early access to a handful of trusted defenders.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, OpenAI is preparing to essentially shout from the rooftops that their new model is an unalloyed good that will turbocharge global economic output.
Two totally different narratives.
And yet, beneath both the warnings and the hype, the source emphasizes that we are dealing with profound unknowns on both sides.
The information asymmetry is huge for the public right now.
Huge. For Mythos, beyond the specific capabilities in coding and reasoning, we don't know the hard benchmark numbers. We don't know the exact size of its context window, like how much raw data it can hold and analyze in a single prompt.
Right, that's crucial.
We don't know if it possesses new architectural features like extended thinking or internal verification loops. And most importantly, for both Mythos and SPUD, we have absolutely no confirmed details regarding consumer pricing.
But the source does engage in some highly educated, highly concerning speculation regarding that pricing structure, and it is entirely driven by the financial endgame that both Anthropic and OpenAI are racing toward.
So what does this all mean? The IPOs?
Yes, the initial public
The
offerings.
source notes that both of these massive labs are actively eyeing IPOs, potentially aiming to hit the public markets as early as the fourth quarter of 2026.
Which reframes every single decision they are making right now.
How so?
These product releases are no longer just about pushing the boundaries of computer science or academic research. They are meticulously calculated maneuvers designed to court Wall Street institutional investors.
Right. We are watching two simultaneous arms races.
Yeah.
We are watching the race for technological supremacy, Mythos versus Spud, and the race for financial supremacy. And to justify the astronomical valuations they will need for a successful Q4 IPO, the source speculates we are going to see the introduction of ultra-premium subscription tiers. The rumors are pointing toward access costs reaching up to $1,000 a month for unthrottled access to these frontier models.
The implementation of a $1,000 a month tier fundamentally shatters the early utopian narrative of AI as a great democratizing force.
$1,000 a month. Let's think about what that actually means for the economy. OpenAI claims they're accelerating.
It creates a massive divide.
That pricing structure implies a bifurcated future where elite, truly capable, agentic AI becomes a massive luxury or strictly an enterprise-level advantage.
Right. If you are a multinational corporation paying $12,000 a year for an autonomous digital employee that can write code and analyze data 24/7 is the greatest bargain in human history.
Oh, absolutely. But if you are a freelance graphic designer, an independent researcher, or a small local business trying to scale, you are entirely priced out of the very tools required to compete.
You are relegated to the slower, older, free tiers, while massive corporations operate at the speed of Mythos.
It creates an insurmountable productivity gap.
Which raises what is perhaps the most critical unresolved tension of this entire deep dive.
What's that?
We are observing a profound structural contradiction within the AI industry. On one hand, labs like Anthropic are actively sounding alarms. They are warning us, via these leaked documents, about world-altering cyber threats posed by their own creations, insisting that the only responsible path forward is a slow, highly restricted rollout limited to security professionals.
On the other hand?
On the other hand, these exact same organizations are facing immense, relentless capitalistic pressure to demonstrate massive exponential revenue growth. They need to release flashy, highly profitable, widely adopted products to secure those sky-high valuations before they ring the bell on the stock exchange in Q4.
They are trying to play the role of the hyper-cautious neighborhood watch and the aggressive fireworks salesman at the exact same time.
Precisely. This raises an important question. How does an executive board balance the genuine existential need for safety, which inherently demands moving slowly, restricting access, and limiting revenue, with the intense financial mandate to dominate the market and maximize shareholder value prior to an IPO?
History suggests you probably don't. History suggests that when existential safety and massive financial incentives collide, the financial incentives almost always win. Something has to give.
Unfortunately, that's often true.
And honestly, based on how we started this conversation today, with a massive CMS misconfiguration, human error might be the unpredictable variable that decides the timeline for us, regardless of what the executive boards plan.
It is an incredibly precarious moment in the technological timeline. The guardrails are fragile and the engines are running at maximum capacity.
It really is.
Okay.
Let's take a breath and recap the massive amount of ground we've covered today.
Sounds good.
We started by dissecting a sloppy, almost comical infrastructure mistake. A 3,000-document CMS data dump that accidentally exposed Anthropic's most tightly guarded secret, the Claude Mythos architecture.
A leak that fundamentally revealed a model engineered with the connective tissue necessary to synthesize deep academic reasoning with unprecedented cybersecurity exploit capabilities.
Which led us to unpack the chilling economic reality that the cost of executing highly sophisticated cyber attacks is plummeting towards zero, creating an asymmetrical landscape where human defenders are mathematically incapable of keeping up with automated threats.
We then pivoted to explore how this new paradigm of AI autonomy is already manifesting in multi-model workspace revolution. We analyze how platforms like GenSpark are utilizing orchestration layers to allow non-technical users to spin up autonomous agents, like the Claw, that can provision servers and write complex code loops in minutes.
And we wrapped up by placing all these technological leaps inside the massive pressure cooker of spring 2026. The race to deploy models like Spud and Mythos is inextricably linked to the frantic push for Q4 IPOs, raising the specter of a $1,000 a month subscription tier that threatens to completely bifurcate the digital economy. It is a massive, incredibly dense landscape to navigate.
It is indeed. And as we conclude our analysis of this source material today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to consider, building directly on the implications of Anthropic's emergency deployment strategy.
Lay it on us.
The leaked text makes it very clear that Anthropic's primary mitigation strategy is to provide the shield to cybersecurity defenders before releasing the sword to the broader public.
Right.
They are desperately trying to give human organizations a window of time to fortify their networks. But if we accept the core premise of Mythos, that this upcoming wave of AI can autonomously discover, synthesize, and exploit novel vulnerabilities in complex code bases far faster than human cognition can process, we must ask ourselves a deeply unsettling question. Are we rapidly approaching a threshold where human agency in digital security becomes entirely obsolete? Think about the mechanics of the patching loop. If an AI creates the novel threat, and only an equally advanced AI can identify and deploy the necessary patch in time to stop the breach, human engineers are no longer active participants in our own digital safety.
Wow.
We are entirely removed from the loop. We are reduced to mere bystanders, anxiously watching a high-speed war between autonomous machines unfold across our own servers.
A war moving at the speed of light, executing thousands of automated zero-day exploits a second, while we are still sitting at our desks, squinting at our screens, trying to remember which of our 15 browser tabs has our password manager open.
Precisely. The scale of the conflict fundamentally outgrows the human capacity to participate in it.
It brings us right back to the shattered paradigm we started with today. We desperately want digital security to remain a clear, human-managed process. We want a binary system where a human analyst can look at a server log, point to the malicious code, and confidently apply a manual fix. But in the face of this impending wave of automated multi-domain AI-driven exploits, that diagnostic X-ray machine is broken beyond repair.
Yes.
The waters aren't just murky. The tide is rushing in at an unfathomable speed, and it's threatening to wash the old architecture away completely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We hope this gave you a clearer view of the shifting ground beneath our digital feet. Stay curious, keep exploring the mechanisms behind the headlines, and we will see you next time.